All right, let's do it live on an actual Friday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. I am merely Beau. The great Z is allegedly en route to Florida. We don't know for sure. I mean, that guy, he's plane, trains, and automobiles when it comes to travel, Gibby. It's a debacle.
I'm going to throw it out there. He's a little bit of bad news on the traveling portion of the program.
Yeah, I would say.
I don't think I would want to travel with him these days.
I mean, has he
got
had a
some
clean
bad things
flight
going on.
in 6 months, a year? Since pandemic, has he had one clean flight?
No, not at all.
So, supposed to fly yesterday to Disney. No. Flight canceled. See on Saturday.
Didn't have a first captain available.
I don't even know what that is.
I'm assuming that is the co-pilot?
Jeez.
I don't know how that happens.
Feels like you're going to need those guys and multiple of them at the ready.
Yeah, especially if it's a hub.
Jeez.
I'm just going to throw it out there that maybe
you'd want that, yeah.
You got to have somebody available.
You would think. You would think so. I am. We're at the end of the month. We're going to the Bahamas, and my anxiety level. We're like 20. We're like 15, 2 weeks out. My anxiety level is just adding every day. Now I'm direct into there, major carrier, so I feel very good about that. Feel very good about getting down there. But we also have, as of right now, you still have to have a health visa to land there and to be accepted into the country. So you have a 3-day window to do a COVID test. It has to come back clean by then, and then they have to approve it all in a 3-day window for all of this to happen.
Being
I'm like, what if someone
vaccinated isn't enough?
No. You need to have. You need to show that you are negative. And I'm thinking, like, I don't know Are we still in COVID? I have no idea. It seems like maybe a little, but I guess they are in the Bahamas. I have no idea. But they're like, I'm thinking to myself, one of our kids is going to blow red. Hell, I may.
Yeah. Like you.
I don't know.
No matter how you try to put them in a bubble, it doesn't. They're kids. They're
right.
Human germs.
Right. And then as we know from, now I think it's like the test that we were doing here where it was like, a certain percentage. There's certain, I don't remember how it was. You remember there was like certain level where if you have this number of this, well, then you're okay even though you've had it. So I'm guessing that's what's required is even if you've had it previously and unbeknownst to you, you've had it, you can have a low number. I have no idea. But I'm thinking to myself, like, what if it's that Friday night, like 2 weeks from today, and we blow positives, and the next day we're supposed to fly down there? Not great.
So that happened to one of my wife's good friends, except in January. They were going to Ireland. Trip scrapped.
No, and you're not. They have like a year to take it or something?
All 5 kids tested
God.
negative. The parents tested positive, and neither one knew that they didn't even have a sniffle.
Didn't know they had it, yeah. Oh, you hate that.
And they had to test like 48 hours out. Now, that being said, I can offer you a little bit of advice on that off the air. I can get you those tests prior to you.
Prior to that?
Yes.
Well, that would be nice.
Because I had to do that for my kid when she went to France.
You had to get the
And there's some people here that can make things happen, and they sent the nurse to the house to test us.
Oh, now we're talking.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
And it was same day.
Got
it back.
Quick result. We can sort this out. Okay. All right. Well, that's positive. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Did you enjoy your day off? Did you go take in the basketball?
You know what? I had taken the day off to go to the MAC tournament. Got to burn some vacation days. The way things work here, by our calendar year is April 1 to March 31. So I was like, I'll take a day and go to the MAC tournament. But then, like, my alma mater sucks.
Sure.
And they lose by 40 last week, and they're not going to the tournament. I'm like, do I want to sit here and watch a bunch of teams that aren't my alma mater?
Sure.
Like, I like hoops. Like, I would actually go tonight.
I was going to say, tonight's pretty good.
If you are a fan of college basketball, tonight is the night. You have Akron, Toledo. You have Kent State and Ohio. It is an all-Ohio Final Four. It is the dream scenario if you're in the MAC and if you're 850 ESPN Cleveland, which is carrying the games.
I mean, you're not doing better than this.
No.
Plus, these teams are dogs. Like, Kent State hasn't lost in like a month. Ohio, at one point this year, was on the verge of being ranked.
And they have a premier player in the country.
They do. And they got the Vanderplus kid who can hit it from anywhere. Akron, John Gross's team, we know what he did at Ohio. He was at Illinois. And Toledo's the 1 seed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is as much juice as you could ever have. I said this, if you just like hoops, I was saying this morning on my morning show, like, if you just like hoops and you don't know what to do on a Friday, go down there. Go down there. You will not be you will get all of the passion you need tonight. It's going to be awesome.
I mean, they curtain off the top. I mean, you're literally in the first section or the club level for the game.
Awesome.
Like, you have great seats. It's an unbelievable atmosphere. Can't stress it enough. Yesterday, I'm like, you know what? I got a few other things that I got to do just because I hadn't been home and I'd been traveling all over the place. And so I just, I had a couple, I hooked up, I had 2 TVs going in the same room.
Yep.
So I could just kind of watch a little Big Ten, watch a little ACC,
Yep.
flip over at the MAC games to hear my good friend Michael Regai down the stretch of the games. If there was a close one like Toledo almost getting beat yesterday.
Right.
Duke putting a nice little scare into me, as Duke always does.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And I watched hoops through like 11 o'clock last night.
Awesome.
I got some stuff done around the house.
You could, with the way that this product is now being pushed out to us, like I was able to watch Montana State yesterday in the Big Sky Conference quarterfinals on ESPN Plus. Like, you can watch every game that you want to watch around the country. You can watch them. They're readily available. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I did not enjoy what I saw from Ohio State last night. That was not good. Some of that's injuries. They're too big. Kyle Young, Maslin Jackson kid, he's had 3 concussions in the year. And I don't know if he'll ever play again, quite frankly, but the loss of him is really felt. And then the other thing, they're without Zed Key, who's another big. But this is Chris Holtman's 5th year in Columbus. It's hard to imagine them getting out of the first weekend of the tournament. They'll make the tournament. They'll be a 7 seed, 6 seed, maybe a 7 seed. Could fall as far as 8. I don't think so. I think 6 or 7. Hard to imagine them getting out of the first weekend this year. He will go into this offseason for the first time with legitimate pressure on him. And the St. Vincent St. Mary kid, Malachi Branham, who was Mr. Ohio in basketball last year, the buzz on him is really starting to pop. And they thought for sure he'd be back for a second year. He seems like a first-round pick lock now. So now you're talking about they would lose their 2 best players going into next year. It would be the first time that Holtman would face real pressure going into a season.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they were up, I think, 5 at half. And
they were up 9 with 10 minutes to go. They were up 9 with 10 minutes to go. Gibby, Penn State scored on 22 of their 30 second-half possessions.
And how many of those were in the paint?
Oh, it was a layup line.
I think it was all of them.
22 of 30 possessions?
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're saying, well, excuse me, Beau, but is Penn State excellent offensively? No, they suck. They're 13 out of 14 in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
They're terrible, and they got whatever they wanted.
Yeah,
so,
it was
I love this weekend, though. I love it.
Illinois is down 3 here to Indiana. My Illini.
That's a squad. I like that Illinois team, too.
Yeah.
I think they can make a move. I got a question for you on this. This was asked to me today, this morning. You and I are of a certain age where I certainly qualified Indiana as a blue blood when I was a kid. Like, I would have put them with Kentucky and Carolina and
UCLA.
Kansas and UCLA, like those programs.
The pillars.
They were the top. That was the top of the heap.
Yeah.
Were those programs. Do you know how many 12-loss seasons Indiana's had in the last 20 years?
No.
It's like 15.
Really?
Yeah.
Which always puts you on the bubble. That makes you like an 18 and 12.
That's right. You're
Usually
18 and 12.
play-in.
The one year they played for the national title, they did so, I want to say, as an 8 seed with Jared Jeffries. They were 25 and 12. But 5 of those wins were in the NCAA tournament to get to that point. But it's been a long time. It's hard. And that's what I know there are a lot of Buckeye fans out there, fire Chris Holtman. Look, man, you're one bad hire from being irrelevant. They're in the mix. Is March disappointing? Yeah, it is. But he's getting Big Ten, first-team All-Big Ten guys. He's getting pros. It will click at some point. He's a good dude, runs a good program. So
it is amazing, the programs we just named. I mean, Bill Self has been able to keep Kansas at a high level.
Yeah.
But those pillar programs.
It's tough, man.
How do you disappear when you've been good for as long and as storied a history as you have?
Well, the Indiana one's hard to understand because high school basketball is still great in Indiana.
It's
they
the
still
only
produce.
Thing that matters in the state of Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, it is the way that we view football here. I mean, it's similar. There's still great talent in the state of Indiana. They just haven't been able to sell that program. And it's Mike Woodson now. Now, he played there for Bobby, Coach Knight. So, he needs it. Trace Jackson Davis was a huge signee when they signed him. Archie Miller signed him. He was the Indiana Player of the Year, all of that. He could have gone anywhere, went to Indiana. He's a senior. So they need to get to they need for this to happen. So this run would be a big, big deal for them. On the football side of things, multiple reports today that the Browns plan to tender restricted free agent running back Dearness Johnson at the right of first refusal. Multiple reports of this. The team tendered him the right of first refusal amount of $2.43 million, meaning he'll earn that from them this season unless a team makes him an offer. The Browns either match or let him walk away. The lowest tender amount, the new team would not owe the Browns draft pick compensation. So we talked about this months ago that we would do that. You would do this because otherwise he walks for free. So this would be a way to prevent that from happening. I would be very curious. I think we're in a wild time, man. I know we'll get to the MAC thing in a second, but I think the next week is going to be this last week's been crazy. We covered it yesterday on the show, going through all of the things that happened. And I found that fascinating talking to all of those guys because not so much in terms of, how these trades came about, but what led to the thinking. What a legend. Swag is dialed in today. Just dialed in.
There are a lot of luminaries in the boardroom today.
Oh, there you go. You got big decisions being made.
Yep, something's going on.
But I think that the next couple of weeks is going to be very fascinating. Oh, I found those conversations interesting because it's interesting to go inside the mind of a team. If you're Indy, what are you thinking? So you're off of Wentz. So what market are you in now? If you're Seattle and you're off of Russell, what market are you in now? Who's available right now that we don't know they're available yet? And not just quarterbacks, but receivers, running backs, skill guys, defensive ends. Who's in a position that feels like, you know what, this ain't it. Let's get rid of it and let's start over right now because I think some of that could happen in the next couple of weeks. I really do.
Yeah, I think, number one, bringing Dearness back because – number two, I think you proved you better have 3 quality running backs.
Well, the way we're going about it,
offense,
yeah.
You better have 3 quality backs. And this is technically coming up here the last year for Kareem Hunt and his contract. So some decisions are going to have to be made on that front. And I think having Dearness here and keeping that running back room intact, and especially with Stump Mitchell returning, I think that's a really big deal. But I think you're right. I think the way you have coined this all week long and calling it the arms race in the AFC, things are going to become available. People are going to become available. And I still believe, and I listened yesterday to all your reporter check-ins, which was awesome.
It was awesome, yeah.
In Seattle, Duger,
Yeah.
I came away going, they knew they have a backup plan already in place.
Sure seemed
There's
like
no
it, didn't
way
it?
they were going to pull this without
absolutely
knowing where they were going.
Yes.
And the same thing, I think, with Chris Ballard's a hell of a GM in Indy. There's no way he's making that move without knowing or at least thinking what he's going to do next.
They have a plan.
Yeah.
They're not going into this stuff willy-nilly. Now, if you're a fan, you might not like that plan.
Yeah.
You might not. But there is a plan that is going to be put into motion that has been sold up the chain, and while it comes as a shock to us, it wasn't to them. It wasn't. The trading of Russell Wilson was not a shock to the people around that franchise, that was something that was happening. And now where do they go from here, and what are those options? Who knows?
I know we're going to talk about Mac in the next segment, but, that's a prime example. None of us thought he was getting moved yesterday.
Well, that goes to that conversation that I was having with Nathan the other day of if you're a team who looks up and says, we ain't in the window right now. We're not good enough to be a team that can win the Super Bowl. Let's get rid of some stuff. Let's get some assets. Let's try to be all young at the same time and build it up once right. That's clearly what Chicago's doing.
Yeah.
Right? So, and in the NFC, It's wide open. It is absolutely wide open on that side of things. And so there's a lot of options out there, and you might have to go a different route than the way that you were thinking. That might be something that has to happen. Fun program for you today. As we mentioned, a big trade in the NFL yesterday. We will get to that as the arms race continues. Andrew Hutchinson will join us at the bottom of the hour on Treylon Burks, the Arkansas receiver who had his pro day. Jake Trotter at 2 o'clock with his free agent off-season preview. You have that to look forward to, which is very, very nice. Coming up at 2:30, we do a little higher, lower. Keep you updated on the hoops all day long as well. We're off and running. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Rumpke Waste Recycling, family-owned and operated. Whether you join them as a customer or as an employee, you'll be part of the family. Visit rumpke.com to learn more on that front. We alluded to this in the first segment of the show, and this happened yesterday afternoon. Another big trade in the AFC to bolster the AFC teams. It's Khalil Mack going to the Los Angeles Chargers. The deal opens up some money for the Bears, and it makes the Chargers, when you play them, you're going to have to deal with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. I'm guessing that will be effective. And Derwin James.
ESPN Cleveland. Breaking news.
Jordan, is there any breaking news?
That was fun.
No news.
No news. False alarm. Jordan, false alarm. Prank caller.
I was scared.
I was like,
my God.
Where is this going today?
My God.
It's Friday. Like, get us to 3 o'clock.
I'm trying.
It's MAC tournament.
Trying.
Illinois is tied with Indiana, 54 apiece with 5:15 left. There's your update.
That's where you stand on that side of things.
Yeah, that's where you stand over there. Okay, let's get the heart rate back down. You and I had a conversation, and I know you've talked to a few people. Maybe the way you beat all these teams in this AFC arms race is defensively.
Not participate in it. Yeah.
And go the opposite.
And do the opposite. Doug Lesmarie said it with me this morning. I'd never thought of it that way in that sense, but maybe that is it. If you're one of these teams that doesn't have the firepower, you think about what the Chargers have done. So they have Herbert, who's obviously very damn good. They don't even let Mike Williams get to free agency.
Correct. And they still have $25 million left to spend.
So they have Allen and Williams. We know that. They have Eckler, who's great. Their defense has, it really looks almost a lot like the Rams' plan from a year ago in that they have Derwin James, they have Joey Bosa, and now they've added Khalil Mack to the mix. So now you're going to have to deal with Bosa and Mack in a division that already has that Denver team that added Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes.
I didn't realize
all in
Khalil
one division.
Mack, by the way, was only making $17 million. I say only, but
relatively
in the
speaking.
going rate of defensive ends and edge rushers, I feel like that's a pretty good deal.
I'm not going to sit here and I don't watch every Bears game. I don't know if he's still the player he was at one time. Is he older than I think? Is he I remember him playing against Ohio State, and I want to say it was Taylor Decker, the left tackle. I don't want to go at the wrong. It might have.
Khalil Mack is 31.
He's 31. I can't remember if it was Taylor or not, but I remember that when Khalil was at Buffalo, it was a turnstile around the left tackle at Ohio State, and obviously Ohio State has players.
Just a little bit.
I'm trying to remember who that poor kid was. I hate to even put that on his name like Ricky Bobby and put that type of stink on his name, but there was a kid where he just went around. I was curious if Mac
totally forgot about that game. That feels like it was only
it was
like
2013 Ohio State probably. Is that when that was?
I think he was the highlight. He was like how Harrison Bryant was against Ohio State.
Yeah, like he just stood out amongst. All right, let's see if I have that right. Yeah, they opened 2013, so we had that right. All right, let's see. Who were we starting? So Braxton would have been there. Would have been Braxton's junior year. The left tackle would have been Taylor Decker, I'm pretty sure. Yep. Oh, good. I'm glad I didn't put that stink on some. And Taylor's a good kid. He was only a sophomore. But I remember at the time we're going, geez, are they going to be okay at left tackle? We're going to be able to protect anybody.
Yeah.
Well, come to find out, Khalil Mack was really, really good. And Taylor's really good.
I was going to say.
He's done quite well for himself.
Turned into a pretty good player.
Yeah, he's just a sophomore at the time. But this speaks to the thing that we're talking about, where if you're Chicago, you're looking up and you're saying, hey, we are not in a position right now to go win a Super Bowl. We hope that we've drafted a franchise quarterback that eventually can lead us to a Super Bowl. But right now, we don't have one. We don't have a Super Bowl contender. So let's get rid of people who are aging, who are a little more expensive, in turn for asset accumulation and an attempt to build this right with a bunch of guys the same age. This is the getting rid – and Khalil Mack is not the middle class, but this is the getting rid of the middle class of the NFL. If you're 7-10, if you're 8-9, if you're 9-8, you're nowhere. That's the thinking.
Exactly.
Now, I don't know if I agree with it, and for certain people it's different. For example, like Nathan and I were talking about earlier in the week, I think it's different if you're in the NFC. Like if you're in the NFC South and you have an opportunity to, I'll just say this is a simpler way to say it. Jimmy Garoppolo is worth more to the NFC South team that he would go to than he is to the Indianapolis Colts. Jimmy Garoppolo does not put the Indianapolis Colts over the edge. Not even close. The AFC is too tough. It's not enough.
Maybe you could win your division.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But then you're in the meat grinder of the AFC, and that's not the firepower that's going to be required to win in the AFC. However, in the NFC, especially the NFC South, Jimmy Garoppolo on the New Orleans Saints is a division winner. That's the difference.
You're a playoff team.
That's the difference. That's where you're at. So that's the thing. Your worth, it depends on where you're at. If you're going to Indy, I mean, Cousins is a great example. The guest we had on from Seattle said maybe that they would go after Cousins and try to have a run team and hit some big shots down the field and play good defense. And that was the way that Pete Carroll wanted it. Okay. Kirk Cousins in that situation in the NFC, in a situation in the NFC South, would be the difference between you making the playoffs or not. Kirk Cousins for Indy is not the difference between them being a contender or not. Not good enough.
You're a contender for the playoffs.
For the playoffs.
You're not even a contender for the Super Bowl.
You've got to sort it out. You got to find a way. You got to find a way to in the AFC right now. And this is what Doug said this morning, and I thought it was interesting. We were talking about our situation here, and he said, we'll have him on, I'm sure, in the coming weeks. But he said, look, I would go the other way. I would go all in with the defense, and I would try to have an elite defense. Try to have an elite defense and say we're going to have the best defense in the league, and we're going to run the ball, and we'll zag while everybody else is zigging. Because, and this is kind of what I was talking about earlier in the week. I don't know if there's the firepower out there in the draft and in free agency / trades to get this offense explosive enough in the pass game. I don't know if there is. We thought Mike Williams would get to market. He didn't. We thought maybe Chris Godwin would get to market. He didn't. I mean, hell, Amari Cooper isn't even getting to market yet. Yeah. They may restructure that deal in Dallas. He may end up staying. Who knows? This list of free agents in receiver around it just might not be there.
Yeah, didn't Shepard re-up with the Giants yesterday?
Yeah, I think I did see that.
I mean, he restructured his deal too.
Right.
So, I mean,
there just might not be a way to answer all of the questions to improve the pass game this offseason. This is me talking. This is, it's you and I talking on the radio. We're not talking about the people in the building. I'm just saying start to find a way to get elite in the passing game with what's available to you, and it's tough.
Well, number one, if I'm Minnesota and I'm Atlanta with their respective quarterback situations, I'm not trading either one of those guys because all of a sudden you become players in the NFC because you actually have a quarterback.
Yeah. Well, that's what, when we were talking about Matt Ryan, like someone said, well, why would they stick with Matt Ryan? Because if you're the Atlanta Falcons, you can talk yourself into, hey, let's draft a receiver. Don't they pick 7th? Let's draft a receiver at 7. We pair him with Pitts. We have the most viable quarterback in the NFC South. It's Trask, maybe Jameis, Darnold.
Yeah. I mean, you keep those guys if you're their respective teams. Do what you can if you're the Browns in free agency and in the draft, maybe to upgrade the wide receiver room. You have to upgrade the wide receiver room. But everything else is okay. You need a little more depth on the offensive line.
Yeah.
Probably need to go get another tight end, probably in the draft, to anchor that, to make sure you've got enough bodies in the tight end room because you play 3 tight ends. So, but everything else is in place. It's a loaded draft on the defensive line, and you have playmakers at linebacker and in the secondary. You could really upgrade your defense.
Well, and unfortunately, because of everything that's happened, we talked about this yesterday. It seems like Clowney's going the other way, and might not be back. That is now something of tremendous need.
I'm a little surprised by that.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I was looking at the CBS report and it said, don't close the door on it. The guys from the OBR do a really good job. They tend to think that it's going the other way, that the door's not closed all the way yet. But that was the second biggest priority, was keeping him.
Yeah, look, Jadeveon Clowney's in no rush to make any decisions because the longer he waits, then he doesn't have to do the off-season programs.
Right. Yeah.
He's a veteran. He knows how to play this game.
Yep.
The last couple of years, the one year we didn't get him, we didn't know till, I think, May. We almost didn't know till May last year that he was signing with us.
Absolutely. The weather is, again, cold outside. Are we getting snow tomorrow? Is that the deal? 28 or something's the high?
That front looks like it wiggled a little bit, and now we're maybe not going to get everything. that they had said, but we're still going to get some kind of messy situation tonight into tomorrow morning.
Great. Just great.
Yeah.
Either way, a nice hot bath or shower would feel amazing, and you can transform your bathroom into a custom bath. It'll feel like a spa. Let the Bath Authority make it a reality for you at a fraction of the cost of the competitors. The Bath Authority is Cleveland's premier bath and shower remodeler, expert factory-trained installers. They're at the ready. It's where affordability meets quality. It's the largest selection of bath projects, all made in the United States. You can change your bathroom from outdated to outstanding. Acrylic tubs that insulate, keep the heat in, tub-to-shower conversion, superior products, expert installers. Give them a call now for $500 off your next custom bath or shower remodel. That number is 216-220-8399. Again, that's 216-220-8399. $500 off. Tell them Beau sent you. BathAuthority.com for more on that. Coming up next, Andrew Hutchison will join us. He's the managing editor at hogsbeat.com. He was at the pro day for Treylon Burks. We'll ask him about the receiver out of Arkansas and all those Deebo Samuel comparisons. That's coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Cleveland Browns Daily here on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Time to head on the hotline. Talk to Andrew Hutchinson, managing editor of hogbeat.com, the Arkansas site on the Rivals Network, and, of course, a man who has seen Treylon Burks a lot. And he is someone that could be a really nice fit here in Cleveland with the Browns based on our perception of him. But let's talk to a guy who really knows Treylon and what he's all about. Andrew, thanks for taking the time. Let's just start with this. When did this ceiling for him become apparent to you?
Honestly, he's a guy that played high school football here in Arkansas as well, and I went and saw him play in a playoff game his sophomore year of high school, and I left from that going, wow, that guy is the real deal. He was a guy I thought was a five-star caliber recruit, and then to not just look like that in high school, but I mean, he just kept getting better and better. He did have a knee injury, I want to say his senior year, that kind of limited him a little bit. But once he got to Arkansas, it was very apparent that this guy was a guy that was going to be playing on Sundays. And then as the year, as he progressed through his career, it became more and more apparent that he was a legit first-round draft pick kind of guy. And but I mean, I knew early on that guy was going to be a player at the next level.
Oh, that's awesome. Have that type of recall to go all the way back with a kid. This is going to be fun. Let me ask you this, because in terms of his progression to receiver, first round pick receiver, how did they use him last year as opposed to this year, and how is that evolution to full-time receiver gone? Because from what I understand, the previous year was kind of a jack of all trades, did everything.
Yeah, and I mean, he did a little bit of that this year as well. I mean, he was the best player on the team. I mean, they had Arkansas when Treylon got here. Arkansas was probably the worst Power 5 team in college football. 2-10. They went 2-10 Treylon's freshman year. The coaching staff was not good. They just were not very. They didn't even find a way to get Treylon Burks in the end zone his freshman year. If that tells you anything about the coaching staff. But this new coaching staff, Kendall Briles, the offensive coordinator, and Sam Pittman, the head coach, they found ways to get the ball in his hands. His freshman year, he did return some punts and kicks. He did a little bit his sophomore year, but they kind of took away from that because they didn't want to risk, obviously, injury because he was such a vital part of the offense. But he's a guy that they would line up in the slot. They would put him, outside in single coverage, and they go deep to him. He lined up in the backfield sometimes as a running back. They would put him in motion and hand him the ball on sweeps. He had like a 50-yard touchdown run on a sweep in one game this year. He takes screens. I mean, he had like a 91-yard screen play. Took a screen 91 yards for a touchdown in one game this year. They even had him throw passes because he did play a little bit of quarterback in high school because, as you can imagine, a guy of that talent, they want to have the ball in his hands as much as possible. And he never completed a pass in college, but they did. That shows you how much they trusted him. I mean, they did have him throw the ball a few times. So he literally did a little bit of everything, maybe more so in 2020 than 2021, but they were very creative in how they got on the ball this year as well.
Andrew, we were over at the Combine, and we're curious how you're always curious how all these guys test. And I think it's safe to say that he, from a testing standpoint, he didn't help himself. He didn't hurt himself either. And one of the things that I heard over there on him was, does he have that blazing speed that's needed? Now, the funny thing is when I watched what little I have of him, in terms of clips or even just from memory watching Arkansas play this year, I don't remember him getting caught much. Is he football fast?
Yes, 100%. I mean, I know everyone was maybe disappointed by the 4.55 40, but he's a guy. He's not a track runner. I mean, he ran track in high school, of course, but he's not a guy that's going to get down in a sprinter stance and just blaze a 4.2 or whatever like you see some of these wide receivers do. But he is football fast. He was clocked. On that 91-yard screen play that he took for a touchdown, he was clocked at 22.6 miles per hour, and that was faster than any NFL player was clocked at during this past season. He also ran away from the Alabama secondary on a touchdown, and I think we all know Alabama has athletes in the secondary. So he's got football speed. He is plenty fast. So to me personally, I'm not an NFL draft expert by any means, but I'm not concerned in the slightest about his speed.
Yeah, no, the Alabama plays the one that I recall going, well, I think he'll be fine. I'm not too worried about that. Sometimes they make way too much deal about that. In terms of what type of player he will be, one thing we heard a lot at the Combine, obviously, was Debo. And honestly, before we even got to the Combine, we knew that would be the case. In terms of guys with that type of versatility, that's a lot to put on a player. What type of style do you think he will bring to the National Football League? Who does he remind you of? And I know that's tricky to do that. I won't hold you to it.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I know he likes to kind of mimic his game after Debo, and A.J. Brown is another one that I've seen him compared to, similar physical style of wide receiver. I think I've seen DK Metcalf as a comparison as well. Just he's a physical specimen. I mean, that's one reason I think the 4.55 is really impressive as well, is he's 225. I think he was 6'2". He was listed at 6'3" at Arkansas. So he's got the size and just kind of a physical, strong guy to go with that speed. So I see him kind of fitting in that mold. It's hard to say, I mean, how he's going to do it at the next level. I mean, the NFL is a jump up, but he did it in the SEC. And if you can do it in the SEC, there's NFL players on every roster in this league. So I think he's going to be able to handle it. So I could see him being one of those guys that is a just kind of a bigger body guy that can be used in the slot. He can go outside as well. So I think he's going to be a versatile kind of guy.
Yeah, certainly does. A lot of those things are things that we like and could be a fit here in Cleveland. If I could ask you a couple questions in terms of the high-level guys in the SEC. You watch that league, and obviously there's so much talent in it year in and year out. Who are some guys that you think that you really like coming out of the league this year in terms of their transition from college to the pros?
Yeah, the one guy that I really liked all year long is Jordan Davis, the big defensive tackle from Georgia, and I like him even more after seeing what he did in the Combine. I mean, he was incredible. Just watching him play, they played Arkansas both last year in 2020 and this year in 2021. And he's just a beast. I mean, he's so big. He's got such speed. I watched him on one play. Arkansas has this a smaller kind of speedy running back named Traylon Smith, and he usually is a guy that can get to the outside, get to the edge, and then cut up field. And Jordan Davis ran him down. I mean, it was unbelievable to see that out of a guy that big. That's the number one guy that jumps out at me. Trying to think of some other ones in this league that are also really impressive. I thought, oh goodness, you're putting me on the spot. Jordan Davis is the one that really jumps out at me. And of course, there's going to be some other guys I think that are going to be really good in the future years, like Will Anderson at Alabama is another one. I mean, I'm talking about pass rushers here. There were so many good pass rushers in the league this year, and Will Anderson's the one to be keeping an eye on. I know he's not coming out this year, but next year, I think he's going to be a candidate to be, top 5 pick.
Yeah, certainly. There's no question about that. Basically anybody off Georgia's defense ought to be pretty dang good based on what we saw last year from them up close and personal. I wanted to ask you one about the SEC in general, because up here, this is Big Ten country. It's Ohio State country, and we've seen what they have done at expansion with Greg Sankey in the Southeastern Conference with Texas and Oklahoma. I heard some comments this week from him about we're going to have to revisit, this 4-team automatic bid thing. And I've always kind of thought that he's playing chess and a lot of other people are playing checkers in college athletics. And I think he's trying to reset the narrative, frankly. I do. I think, Andrew, he's trying to say, hey, it's better to be 9-3 in our league than 11-1 in yours. And he might be right. How much power does he have right now? And how do you see the Southeastern Conference, which is the preeminent conference in college football, evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think the SEC is just going to keep getting bigger and stronger. I mean, the conference is always going to be really good as long as, Nick Saban is coaching at Alabama. That guy is incredible, and I don't know when he's going to stop. And when you've got this level of talent, and some people say, oh, well, it's just, Alabama. Like, that's the only reason the SEC is really good. But if you look at the draft picks, I mean, every team in the SEC pretty much, I mean, even Vanderbilt has a guy every now and then that gets drafted. But Arkansas will have multiple guys drafted. The Mississippi schools will have multiple guys drafted. There's always LSU, Texas A&M, and you're getting ready to add Oklahoma and Texas, two, big-time brands that always have talented football players. So I think there is a lot of power in the SEC, and I think the other conferences recognize that. I think that's why we saw that alliance, form with the Big Ten and everything. I still don't 100% understand what the point of that was and what it's going to accomplish.
Neither do we.
But I think it was done because of the SEC. It was in response to the SEC kind of trying to expand and take over the college football world, I think.
Well, I think an alliance lasted about a week because I think a week later USC scheduled LSU. So if you're going to have an alliance, then you probably can't do that. Really enjoyed the conversation, Andrew. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, that's Andrew Hutchinson, managing editor, hogbeat.com, the Arkansas site on the Rivals Network. We're talking about Treylon Burks there. Big physical kid. Could be a nice fit, could be. And I think when we were talking about that defensive model and trying to win that way in a conference that is so offensive top-heavy, kind of the one team that has done that recently is the 49ers. I mean, they've done it. Like, they invested heavily in their defensive line. Their defensive line was unblockable. They're a Jimmy Garoppolo miss on a pass or a blown coverage that they say, hey, don't do this, from winning the Super Bowl. So when you think of them and you think of what they're able to do creatively, offensively, in order to manufacture points, and they use Debo in every way. Kyle was brilliant this year with the way he used Debo. And I think that's a lot to put on this kid. I think that's too much probably to put on this kid. But he is a versatile weapon that could unlock a lot of things for your offense.
13-10. That was the score in the playoff game this year in Green Bay. That's what the 49er defense to Aaron Rodgers, the number one seed in the NFC.
Yeah.
13-10.
Maybe that's a path. I mean, there's smarter people in here than me that are thinking about these things, but that might be the most logical path forward, Gibby.
Can I interest you in Indiana to the semis?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a big upset. So that means they knocked off Illinois.
Yep. Illinois
probably puts Illinois in the 3 seed area.
Yeah, I don't think they could be they're
not a 2. No, so they probably could drop down. That puts Indiana in. So that means the Big Ten will be Big Ten could be a 9-league bid, a 9-team bid, 9 bids out of the Big Ten because Indiana's in now. They beat Michigan. They beat Illinois. They're in.
I think so. So basically, Illinois takes the lead. They're up 1 with 30 seconds left. Indiana tries to get the ball to the high post, and Cockburn literally bumps the guy.
Oh, Kofi Cockburn. Oh, no.
Fouls him. 1-1. Guy makes both. Illinois comes down, throws the ball away. Guys going one way, other guys going another way, throws it literally just out of bounds. Foul Indiana. Indiana goes down. They made 1 out of 2 free throws. Illinois comes back down the floor, misses a layup, and it just rolled out. Fouls Indiana. Indiana goes back down, misses the front end of the 1-and-1, but Illinois had put all their guys back.
Yeah.
They only had 2 guards down. There was a scrum for the ball, and by the time it came up, the clock was at 0.
Oh, jeez. So now if I'm envisioning the bracket correctly, and I think I am, I believe that I am, that would set up Indiana against the winner of Iowa-Rutgers in the Big Ten in one of the Big Ten semifinals. I believe that's what it is.
Let me look.
I'm pretty sure because on the bottom half is Michigan State and Wisconsin is the other quarterfinal, and then the other one is Purdue and Penn State. I'm pretty sure it sets up that way to where the winner of Iowa and Rutgers would take on.
Here we go.
Or are they crossing?
So Indiana gets the winner of Iowa-Rutgers.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So that means Indiana. I mean, Indiana can beat. Rutgers is playing really well, and Iowa scored 112 or whatever yesterday.
Yeah.
They can score with anybody. But you're setting up for a Big Ten championship that nobody thought Illinois wouldn't be in it. I mean, you're talking about no Illinois in it, no Ohio State in it, no Michigan in it. You go back to the beginning of the year, you would have said one of those 3 teams is going to win it, let alone none of them be in it? Impossible. And that's the way it's setting up.
It could be if Wisconsin beats Michigan State today. That's not easy. And Purdue knocks off Penn State. Wisconsin-Purdue maybe tomorrow would be essentially your Big Ten championship. I mean, Iowa's going to have something to say about it, but
I mean Indiana can beat Iowa for sure. They can if they play defense and just. But Iowa can flat out score it. That's a big win. That's a big win for Mike Woodson.
Indiana, first 9 seed to advance to the semifinals since 2002.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gets you into the dance. That
they're in.
Ticket.
They're in. They're in now at this point. Do you see this? This is pretty remarkable. We talk about guys being waived, released, all of these things. Bobby Wagner, 10 years in Seattle, 8-time Pro Bowl, 6-time first-team All-Pro. 6-time first-team All-Pro. I believe he's 8-time All-Pro. I think the other 2 times he's second-team All-Pro. So he just tweeted this out like 15 minutes ago. Craziest part about all of this, I played there 10 years, and I didn't even hear it from them that I wasn't coming back. I mean, that sucks. Now, it's possible that they would have tried to, but somebody leaks it, it gets word out, and then
an agent gets a hold
of it, and it's done.
That's usually how it goes in terms of things getting out there. It's someone's agent leaking things.
Yeah, it's some sort of, and that's the way that it happens. I mean, it would be remarkable to me if Seattle would have done that with any sort of intent. My hunch would be that they were that they would have liked to have done it, but sometimes the word gets out and you can't keep a secret.
Back to Treylon Burks. I think a lot being made of his 40 time. I think it was like 4.55 or something
in
like
there,
that.
yeah.
Dude's 6'5". You're running a 4.55.
Yeah,
you're
freight
getting down
train.
the field okay.
Yeah, he'll be fine. I just we talked about that. Like he didn't get caught from behind much in the SEC, so I'm really not worried about that.
Dispel that. That goes back to guys that run 4.2s or 4.3, low 4.3. And I'm not discrediting. They're fast. Okay, great. Put pads on and put it in a game situation.
It's really pretty
You're
weird.
running a 4.240.
I always thought it was pretty weird that they don't test them in pads.
I agree.
What's the point? Why don't they put them in pads and have them wear the gear? That's what you're really interested in.
Yeah.
Who cares how they run without gear on? I always thought that. Why have them catch passes without gear? Remember when football did that? John Football did it with the helmet and the pads, and people mocked him. And there's plenty to mock with him. Much of it deserved, but that actually made sense.
Did it right.
Made sense. I mean, that's an actual game-like situation. You're thinking about upgrading your enterprise operating system, but you can't afford the downtime and the disruption that goes with a major overhaul. Well, my friends at EOX Vantage can help. They're data scientists. They're also business operations experts. Your EOX Vantage team does not take a rip-and-replace approach to improving your operating system. Instead, they help you build onto what you already have so you make the best use of your investment, both old and new. Fearing your employees will stress out over new systems, EOX Vantage works to ensure your people can easily adapt to the newer workflows at a comfortable pace. You can start out by making easily manageable changes and add on more when the timing is right. Read how other business owners have overhauled their systems without overwhelming their people. You can do so at EOXVantage.com. I recommend that you do. Jake Trotter will join us next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Ohio Business Machine, preferred copier provider, your Cleveland Browns. They have all the X's and O's for your office. Call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. Jake Trotter will join us here momentarily.
Can I interest you in some scorers?
Yeah, hit me.
Less than 2 to play in the SEC quarterfinals. The number 1 seed there, Auburn. They're losing by 5 to Texas A&M.
Wow.
A&M needs that win.
Yeah, and Auburn is kind of in that mix with Kentucky to be the fourth one or the third one. If they were to lose, Kentucky to win tonight, that elevates the Cats, I would think.
And let's see, the American Athletic Conference quarterfinals. Looks like the top seed there, Houston, trailing Cincinnati by 5 at halftime.
Okay.
Cincinnati 18-14, 7-11.
There was a time when that was a program under Huggy Bear.
Oh, I've got some stories. I had a buddy that was the SID there.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
He was
Kenyon Martin.
Oh gosh, yeah, they were Damon Flint, Kenyon Martin, Nick Van Exel, Reuben Patterson. I mean, they had dudes. They had a lot of dudes. The Martin year when he broke his leg, they were the number 1 team in the country. He broke his leg for the tournament. And they couldn't. Huggins wanted that Ohio State job so bad, and they thought at one point he was going to get it. I think they ended up going with Jim O'Brien instead at that point, I believe is who it was at that time. I'm trying to remember. Could have been him or it definitely was. I don't think it was Thad.
If
Either
Kenyon
way.
Martin doesn't get hurt, do they win the national championship that year?
Well, it's hard because, with March, it's crapshoot, right? So
correct.
It's hard to.
And they weren't
it's
the
just
most
about the draw.
team.
No, but they were good. They were really, really good. All right, let's head on the hotline. Visit with our good buddy Jake Trotter. Covers the Browns, of course, for ESPN. How about it, Jake? If Kenyon Martin doesn't break his leg, does Cincinnati win the national championship that year?
I'm trying to remember was that like 2001 or 1995?
Somewhere in those 6 years. Somewhere in those 6 years. What was your?
When was what tournament are we talking about?
Well, I'm trying to think of what year that was. The year Kenyon Martin was at Cincinnati. In the meantime, it's March. We'll get into the football stuff in a second. But what's the most memorable March Madness run for you?
Okay, so I was in high school, and Oklahoma City got a NCAA regional, which at the time was a huge deal. Like, that just didn't happen very often.
Yep.
I don't know if it was the first one, but it might have been. And so this would have been like 1997 range. Kansas had Paul Pierce and Rafe LaFrentz. They were there. But the most memorable part of that weekend was Valparaiso.
Yeah,
I was at the game where Drew hit the shot to win the game.
You were at the Bryce Drew game?
Yes, I was at that game.
That's unbelievable, dude.
So I skipped one of my friends. It was actually a gal who played basketball, was like a great high school basketball player. I think she and I skipped school that day and just went to downtown and watched basketball like all day. And that was one of the games we saw.
That's outrageous. I mean, that is.
Yeah.
I always tell people that from a just as much fun as you can have standpoint, if you are a first round site, but especially I think that's pure joy. But even the Sweet 16, Elite 8, like those sites, that is pure joy, man. That's as much fun as you can have.
I don't know. I don't know if I haven't heard anything. So I guess, and I want to say they beat Ole Miss in that game.
I believe you have that right.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Yeah, the Marriott in Oklahoma City, which doesn't exist anymore. Rhode Island was there.
Rhode Island beat Kansas, didn't they?
Yeah.
With Tyson Wheeler.
I want to. I can't remember what Rhode Island. It was like Katina Mobley,
Tyson Wheeler. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They beat the Paul Pierce Kansas team.
It was a really fun regional. I used to and was going to before COVID. In fact, the last time I was in the Browns practice facility in the indoor portion was 2 years ago, probably to the week. And I remember, I don't know who all was there. Gibbs was definitely in there. And we were talking about, it was like the day after the Rudy Gobert game, where we were trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
And And I remember I was covering the Cleveland regional that following weekend. Of course, it got canceled like everything else. But used to be I would cover an NCAA regional every spring. Like I've been like San Antonio to Omaha. I used to cover kind of like whatever regional was in the Midwest. I usually would cover for ESPN. And one year I saw one of the most crazy games. I don't know if you guys will remember it or not, but so Northern Iowa beats Texas on a half-court shot at the buzzer to win the game. And then in the second round, they're playing Texas A&M, and they are down. Northern Iowa is up 9 with 34 seconds to go, and somehow lost the game. It was one of the biggest collapses I've ever seen in person in any sport, and it felt like where I was on press row was kind of like in the corner by the Texas A&M basket, and Northern Iowa would throw the ball into this corner right in front of me and would get trapped and turn it over like every single play in the final 32 seconds. And the kid who hit the game-winning shot for Texas A&M, his parents had actually walked out of the arena because they thought the game was over and never got to see it, which was
was that Northern Iowa team? Was that the Northern Iowa team that beat Kansas with Ali Farokhmanesh?
It wasn't the team that beat Kansas, but it was in that, like, on that run they had. Like, they had it might have been the following season that after they'd beaten Kansas, but it was kind of the same group of players or the same coach or whatever.
It's amazing. It's great. It's the most fun. And we mentioned here on 850 ESPN Cleveland the MAC games tonight, Akron and Toledo, and then Kent State and Ohio. Those will be awesome games.
The MAC. Let's go, Jason.
Absolutely. Well, Gibby's team's not in it. BGSU Gibbs' team is not in it. They didn't even make it. No chance. It was 2000, by the way, with Kenyon Martin. 99-2000 with Kenyon Martin.
Bearcats finished 29-4, lost in the second round of the tournament to Tulsa, who I believe was coached by Bill Self at the time.
I think you probably have that right.
Would I be correct on that?
Yeah, that's right.
That Bearcat team had Kenyon Martin, 19 points, 10 rebounds, 1.5 steals, 1.5 assists, 3.5 blocks a game.
Yeah, he was dude.
Crazy.
Pete McKeel, DeMar Johnson, Steve Logan, Kenny Satterfield, all on that
Satterfield
team.
and Logan were dudes at guard. Yeah.
It was like a year or two after that tournament. So I was in college then, and a buddy of mine who was a big Pitt fan, and we were watching the Selection Sunday show. We just said, as a joke, we said, okay, if one of the Oklahoma schools and Pitt is in the same regional, wherever it is in the country, we're going. And sure enough, in Boston, they were pitted together. And I think I was actually going to a dance that weekend with a gal and had to cancel, which had catastrophic consequences for our relationship, I think. We
you
actually
did all
drove
right,
up.
Jake. You came out
I feel like you've won.
I know. We drove up to Boston like overnight, like on a Wednesday night. Couldn't find – he had like some kind of vague friend at BC. We couldn't even find her room. So we slept in the parking lot of the BC library in his car. And then took a train to the Fleet Center the next morning, watched basketball day. That was Carmelo Anthony in Syracuse. We're at that regional. So that was a fun one as well.
God, that's great. Don't you love that? Just the ability to just hop in a car, road trip, sleep in a parking lot. The good old days, my friend.
Yeah, too old for that now.
What do you make of this week in the NFL, buddy? This is a hell of an arms race in the AFC that's been happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough if you're a Browns fan because – like, I think there's a scenario in which the Browns could be markedly better next year, right?
Sure.
And not make the playoffs just because, I mean, let's go down the list. I mean, everybody in the AFC West is a legitimate threat. 3 of those teams you can almost, pencil in is teams that are very likely to make it. And the Chargers, the Chiefs, and now the Denver Broncos.
Yep.
You go to the AFC East. Obviously, Buffalo, you would have to think they're going to, be a contender again with Josh Allen, but then you got New England and Miami. We'll see what Indianapolis does at quarterback. There could be a shoe to drop still for the Steelers. And then obviously Lamar Jackson is still Lamar. And Joe Burrow, who just went to the Super Bowl. I mean, there's just a lot of teams that are loaded. You would feel a lot better about the Browns' chances if they were in the NFC right now, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. So it's tough, especially with the quarterbacks that are in the AFC. I mean, it is crazy how loaded the league is at that position.
Yeah, it is. The AFC conference. I mean, I think you could make it. I mean, I think this is without much hyperbole. You got 6 quarterbacks, the ones that you all mentioned, that are either feel like they are right now gold jackets or are building the basis of gold jacket careers. I mean, the guy that you probably have the most confidence in that maybe won't be quite as formidable is Lamar, and we haven't seen him healthy in 2 years, and he's already won the MVP.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I can't recall a conference ever being that good, Jake, at the top.
How many teams you guys think are locks for the playoffs in the AFC
6,
right now?
5.
Like, who would you call a lock? Okay, or your 5.
The 3 in the West, Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how the heck you got to say the Bengals, right? I mean,
Do you have to say the Bengals?
It's hard to imagine. I mean, Joe is he was so good the last month. No, you don't have to. I mean, I guess they're one you could talk yourself out of. But then you say like healthy. I think people around here forget how injured Baltimore was this year. I mean, it wasn't just Lamar. I mean, they were without both corners.
It's crazy too. I mean, we haven't even talked about the team who was the 1 seed.
No, you're right, Tennessee.
And it kind of feels like they're, a couple of tiers below. Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably 5. I think you're right. I think it's the 3 West teams. I think it's Buffalo, and then I think it's Cincinnati. Although I feel a little bit less confident in them just because I want to see more of it. And they definitely have some holes on that team that they were able to overcome this year. But
yeah.
We'll see what they're able to do on the offensive line. So then you got 2 spots for the playoffs, and these are the teams that are going for those 2 spots. I mean, Indy still got Jonathan Taylor. They still got some really good defensive players. Raiders, they've got Derek Carr. They made the playoffs last year. New England's going to have a second-year quarterback in Mac Jones, who has a pretty attractive trajectory right now.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I think the Ravens are the team that's kind of – you would think that they're going to be better just if they get even a tiny bit better injury luck. And then, of course, the Browns and Steelers, we'll see what they're able to do at quarterback as well. But, man, it is tough right now. I mean, again, that's what I said. Like, Browns could be much better and, down the stretch might be on the outside looking into the playoffs.
Well, that's the thing. So I got into this with Nathan earlier this week. And I'm not suggesting that this is the situation here because it's not. But if you're the Las Vegas Raiders and you have had a couple of first-round picks through tragedy that aren't going to be there anymore, you've got a quarterback who's good, but is he good enough to elevate you over the other quarterbacks in your division? Probably not. He's also at a position of incredible need in the league. I mean, if he were somehow to come to market, what's the get back on Carr now? Significantly more than it would have been a year ago, especially to an NFC team. Any of those teams in the NFC South would kill to have him. Well, do you think that it's possible, Jake, that you will see teams that go, hey, we're not quite good enough to win it. Let's push the chips in. Let Minnesota, hey, Kirk Cousins, we're not going to win it. What's Kirk Cousins get us back? Do you think there are teams that do what Seattle did with Wilson? And I'm not comparing Cousins to Carr, but I think you get the point.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on what you're going to get for those guys. Like, if you're just trying to move on from your quarterback, it makes sense to do what, like, Indy did, right? Getting a couple of third-rounders, or more to the point, maybe what Philly did the year before, getting that first-rounder for Wentz. If you're Minnesota, though, and you're some of these teams in the NFC, you're kind of an injury or 2 away from being right there. Like, what if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt next year?
Right.
Who's winning that division? I mean, it could be Minnesota. So I think some of these teams that are in kind of the purgatory, it's a little tougher right now in the AFC. But if you're in the NFC, Jimmy Garoppolo got pretty far, has gotten pretty far in the playoffs. I think in the NFC you might want to keep the powder dry a little bit and see if you can, catch lightning in a bottle. Whereas, if you're in the AFC, and you're in the middle, it's tough. And that's that's really the tough spot the Browns are in. And, they've got a lot of work to do next week to kind of put themselves back in position to be a factor.
Yeah, they for sure. That's the spot, and that's why I brought up the Raiders, because I think they're kind of where are they going in that division? They're not winning anything in that division anytime soon. You did your free agent preview. And this got more complicated from Andrew Berry since this season ended, didn't it, Bud? When you think about, especially now, the glaring need on the defensive line, and especially if we believe Jadeveon Clowney is maybe leaning towards not coming back, although who knows what he's thinking. He might not know that until training camp. We know what he wants. We know he wants big money in multiple years. In terms of Andrew Berry's job, this is a tricky one, Bud.
Yeah, I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with somebody, and we were talking about the team, and I was surprised that there was a little bit of pessimism at that point about Clowney, and so, but I said, hey, man, if you lose Clowney, what does your defensive line look like? And I think that's become more and more of a possibility as the weeks have gone on here, where it doesn't look like they're going to be able to sign Clowney. It doesn't look like he wants to come back for whatever reason. I wouldn't close the door on it because who knows? Maybe his market is not as robust as he thinks it's going to be. But he had a good year, and I think he expects to get paid, and those guys get paid that position. But you look at the free agent options out there, and it not a lot. According to Mike Clay at ESPN, who does a great job ranking free agents, he's got Clowney as the number 3 guy. And, before long, you're looking at Emmanuel Ogbah, you guys know about, from his time with the Browns. I mean, it's not like last year. It felt like, man, you've got 8, 9, 10, 11 just premier blue chip pass rushing free agents. And it doesn't feel like that this year around. So replacing a guy like Clowney, I think becomes a little bit tougher. And then the other part of it is the entire defensive line. I mean, who do you feel good about other than Myles Garrett up front right now?
No, that's what I mean. It's why it's so comprehensive. And I think if you're Andrew Berry, I mean, he's going to have a tremendous plan. The 2 off seasons that we've seen from him, he had plan. He addressed needs. He did it in spades, both year one on the offensive line with Hoop, and then obviously with Wills and with Conklin, and then last year defensively, what they did in the draft, what they did in free agency. He has a plan. He executes it. There's no question. It's just that the amount of things that need to be executed here feel like a lot, and they feel like they're at the most important positions in football. You're talking about defensive line, edge rusher opposite Myles, and you got to really bolster this receiving core. And now all of a sudden the receivers in free agency, Mike Williams ain't walking through the door. Godwin's not walking through the door. So where do you improve there?
Yeah, I mean, right now, if you take Myles Garrett out of the picture, you can make the case the Browns have the worst receiving core and worst defensive line in the NFL right now. Now, they don't have the worst defensive line because they do have Myles Garrett. But the point is those are massive holes right now on this roster. And you're right. It's not apparent how they're going to be able to solve them. I'd heard that they were interested in Godwin from Tampa. He got tagged. You mentioned Mike Williams. He's off the board. So all of a sudden, the receiver market is thinned out. And, the Browns are not going to be the only ones trying to get somebody, that could be a viable number 1 guy. I mean, I think Amari Cooper, I wrote about it. That's the guy to watch. We'll see what Dallas does with him. Whenever you hear a team is likely to release a player, that means they're trying to trade that player before they do release that player. He's due a bonus, or he's due his base salary on the 20th. So you would expect that if they're going to move on from him, that will happen pretty quickly, and that'll free him up, to sign with a new team. To me, right now, it feels like the best case scenario from a vet perspective, right? They're going to go get a wide receiver vet, which they need, especially if they move on from Jarvis Landry. That's a guy they really need. And, Calvin Ridley's off the board. It's another one. I mean, Devontae Adams. I mean, all these guys that you thought would be interesting are just not available anymore. So that's the guy I'm looking at for the Browns. But again, I've heard other teams are going to be interested as well. So that's going to be tough. And, it's going to put more pressure on their draft pick if they don't get a guy like Amari Cooper, because, I mean, you're going to need to draft in your number 1 guy at 13. And fortunately, you've got some options there. But, you draft a wide receiver and, then how are you going to address defensive line?
That's
because
just it.
They could go get a guy like Jordan Davis, and all of a sudden you got a second cornerstone up front to pair with Myles Garrett or, whatever pass rusher you want to draft. But they've got holes offensively and defensively that they really need to fill, and that's going to be the focus free agency because the rest of the roster is in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Secondary's great. Offensive line is in good shape. The running backs, and they're going to tender to Ernest Johnson. They're going to be loaded there. On the margins, backup quarterback, whatever. But yeah, defensive line and wide receiver. That's what you got to watch for here.
Yeah, Jake. It does seem to me like it's not just one; it's two at receiver. It feels like that. It feels like it's two guys, right? You got to get two dudes.
Yeah.
You can't have. If it's just the pick at 13, that ain't it. That ain't enough.
No, not at all. Let me call up the free agency sheet right now. I mentioned Amari, but after him, you're looking at Juju Smith-Schuster, which I don't think that he would be interested in the Browns from what I've heard. You guys don't even want me to mention the number 3 receiver on this list.
Nope.
I won't do it. Sounds like Michael Gallup's going to Dallas. And then you're talking about Will Fuller. AJ Green, who's like 50 years old. Russell Gage. Okay. Allen Robinson is the other guy. I haven't heard of the Browns being connected to him. He's the other kind of premier free agent. Obviously a good player. But yeah, if you don't get one of those top guys, and you're just kind of expecting to bolster your receiving core through the draft, you're putting your quarterback, I think, in a tough spot again.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so that's the job at hand. The good news is, if you're a Browns fan, is Andrew Berry's passed these tests the first 2 off seasons he's had. It's just this one's more complicated for sure. Appreciate your perspective. Check out Jake's free agency preview. It is online now at ESPN.com. It is excellent as always. Great talking to you, my friend.
Yeah, see you guys. See you, Beau.
All right, that's our good buddy Jake Trotter, ESPN. He is the best in the business when it comes to covering your Cleveland football Browns. And that's the reality of that situation. We'll get you an update on the conference basketball stuff that's going around. Gibby and I do a little higher or lower as well coming up. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Here for Indy East 4th, excited to be part of the great story of East 4th Street, bringing a music-themed atmosphere with Southern comfort cuisine and a rooftop patio bar to East 4th Street, offering unique menu items paired with barrel-aged cocktails, brought to you by the owners of Char Whiskey Bar and Grill and Avo Modern Mexican. Come in on Saturdays for Indy's Grunge Brunch. It's Saturdays from 10 to 3. Indy is hiring now as well. Stop in at Indy on East 4th to apply. Learn more at Indy East 4th on social for more information on that front.
Couple things.
Hit me.
From the news and notes on what's going on around the sports world. An interesting development from a quarterback standpoint in terms of a guy that is said to be being shopped and knows he's going to be traded. Maybe he's not. Tom Pelissero. Jimmy Garoppolo's shoulder surgery was performed Tuesday by one of the nation's leading shoulder specialists. The expectation is Garoppolo is fully cleared right around the start of training camp for whatever team he ends up on. Dr. David Chow, who was the former Chargers team doc back in the day. And I might have just butchered his name totally.
You said it emphatically.
Yeah.
His relatives are
If
here.
someone's going to correct me, and I know who it would be, I'll get a text momentarily. The original timeline had Jimmy G back by July 1st.
Yeah.
This pushes it to training camp. And now is there maybe a hesitancy to pull a trigger on a trade if you're a team that's interested in one Jimmy Garoppolo?
Well, this goes to my point I was making on Derek Carr, and I'm making this up with Carr. Like, there's nothing to this.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if you're the Raiders, do you say, hey, if we can get 2 1s or a 1 and 3 2s or a young player, and we've got Mariota here. We're not going to win this division anyway. We can get an influx of talent immediately. It's not like Josh McDaniels. He didn't draft Derek Carr.
Yeah, he's not married.
He's not married to him. He got a brand new deal. He's not going to be fired. He's going to be there for a long time. So he can go find his guy. The other thing that's going to happen is, mark my words, there will be at least 4 quarterbacks in the first round of this draft.
Yeah, you've been saying
at
that
least 4
since before we went to the combine.
And there may be 5. Sam Hell might find his way into it too by the time all is said and done. There aren't enough seats. Or there are too many seats, rather. Not enough people to sit in them.
Yeah. And again, the other thing that we're all watching is what happens today with Deshaun Watson and this grand jury investigation in Houston. Obviously, he's going to take the 5th. He's not going to talk. But what's going to happen? The one quote today is the Carolina Panthers are, quote, all in still on Deshaun Watson if and when all this gets taken care of.
Did you see Albright pin that tweet the other day? I think it was yesterday he pinned Carolina for Watson from a year ago.
Yeah.
And I said this yesterday on the show, like Tepper's the type of guy who could withstand that. It's where Deshaun is from or near where he's from. You could sell that. It'd be easier to sell that there than some places.
By the way, all right. So that's the NFL news. There's not a lot today. Things have kind of fallen off after a crazy week. It's like everybody's taking a Friday off before legal tampering. By the way, timeline for this for next week. Legal tampering starts at noon on Monday.
Oh, it's that away we go.
We join you at 1:00. Yeah, normally it's a Sunday deal.
Right.
It's noon on Monday.
Away we go.
So we will join you at 1:00 on Monday, and things could be coming at you rapid fire. The calendar year starts Wednesday at 4:00. So
business is on. I mean, this is pretty remarkable where we're what the next, what the way that this roster and others will look a week from now versus now, dramatically different. Absolutely dramatically different.
By the way, you guys were talking NCAA tournament games, you and Jake Trotter.
Yeah, sure.
And we were talking. One of the best games that I've ever seen, and we talked about Akron and Xavier.
Mm-hmm.
I brought that up a few weeks ago, regular season game. NCAA tournament game here at the Wolstein. Before the NCAA would play at the Q or Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse,
okay,
they played at the Wolstein Center.
Did they really? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. First and second round. Bruce Pearl made a name for himself. He came in here one year. Wisconsin-Milwaukee went to the Sweet 16. And it was out of this building. That same year, little school called West Virginia went to 2 overtimes to knock off Chris Paul and Wake Forest.
Yeah.
111 to 105. Mike Gansey, Olmsted Falls own.
Oh,
from
sure.
West Virginia, 29 points. And a guy by the name of Kevin
Pittsnoggle. Yeah. They went all the way to the Elite Eight, didn't they?
They did. And one of the best basketball games I have ever seen. It was just big shot after big shot. It was a heavyweight fight all the way down and into overtime. And the crowd was pro West Virginia because of Gansey.
Sure.
And they'd already seen Wisconsin-Milwaukee had already upset, so everybody was all in the upset fever.
Was that Beeline at West Virginia there, or had that already gone to Huggy? Feels like Beeline to me. I think that's what got him the Michigan job.
I think so.
Seems like that.
Yeah, it was weird because the first and second rounds were in Cleveland, but the regional was in Albuquerque. So then they had to go to Albuquerque.
Oh, sure. I remember. I covered a regional here with Ohio State when they were the #1 overall seed. When they played out of here, and they played in a brutal. They ended up getting upset by Kentucky in the Sweet 16 in New Jersey, but they were the #1 overall seed out of here. That would have been David Leidy's senior year. So he was back home, and that was pretty sweet. Wasn't Kentucky here for a regional a couple years ago? I think they were when they were the #1 overall seed, and they've been that a lot. But this has been a great site for that. The 2 closest ones this year, there's one in Indy and there's one in Pittsburgh, are the 2 closest
there's a couple
sites.
drivables. Milwaukee's got one.
Yeah.
Indy has one.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah. There's one more in there.
Yeah. I mean, Indy and Pittsburgh, one of them's going to get Ohio State, the other one's getting Kentucky.
John Beeline was the coach.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
My good friend, Cole Condon, shout out, C.
Good job out of him.
His one cousin is a starter at Loyola of Chicago.
Okay.
They're going to the dance.
Yep.
They went far. They've had a run, and he's been
Sister
a big part.
Jean.
He shoots the lights out. His younger cousin is going to the dance as a member of Wright State.
Oh, they had they upset Cleveland State earlier this week, and they won the Horizon League?
Yeah, the Horizon
Yeah.
League. So he's got 2 cousins going, and meanwhile, he had already booked a trip. He's in Naples next week for the first weekend of the tournament. I go, dude, like everything's drivable, and you're going to be in Florida?
Yeah.
And he's like, it is killing me that I decided to go.
Well, the good news for him is he's in Naples, so that's a pretty good spot to be.
Look out the window right now.
28 degrees or whatever we're going to deal with here in the next 24 hours or so. We will get you some updates on the scores going on around the college basketball in a second. The Major League Baseball lockout was over yesterday.
Sure.
Right. I'm always the point of, all right, tell me, what do I miss? Turns out it was all a bunch of nonsense. Like, they're going to play 162 games. It was going to say, okay, we're not going to play till April 14th if we don't get this done by here. Well, actually, we'll be April 7th. It'll be fine. The only thing that's weird is, like, the Guardians are opening with San Francisco, which is a strange opening day, but I think it's a 4:05, so that's nice. It's on a Thursday. So that's a little bit of a win. It's amazing some of the things that they've done. There's the 12-team expanded postseason, so it's similar to the NFL model. Universal DH, I hate that. Hate it. I'm an NL guy.
Get
I
rid
hate
of
it.
pitchers hitting the ball.
I hate it.
I'm done with that.
I like the strategy of it. I think it just depends. If you grew up an NL guy, then it's strange. If you grew up an AL guy, I mean, that's a big thing to bail on. I mean, it's been that way for a long time.
I covered the Cardinals for 3 years.
Yeah, go tell somebody in St. Louis that the DH is the better way.
I have made that argument.
They don't like it.
Threatened.
I bet.
Didn't care.
No. They go back to 9-inning games for double headers. No runners on base to start in extra innings. They had done that. Yeah, kind of gimmicky. It does seem like they are headed towards, as soon as next year, like pitch clocks and some of this other stuff to try to speed this whole thing up, getting rid of the shift. It's remarkable changes in the sport of stuff that's been around forever.
The best thing they can do is not start for the next couple weeks, because right now you're going to get buried by the NFL and free agency.
Yeah.
And then the NCAA tournament for the next 2 weeks is going to own the spotlight. So the best thing that's happening right now is this is getting pushed out start-wise.
Well, I'm thinking the only thing that will be tough for them is they will start, I think that's Masters weekend.
Of course.
I'm pretty sure it's the Masters. It's either Masters or Final Four. It's one of the two. I'm pretty sure it's Masters. I think that's Masters weekend is when they're starting.
Let's see. From a schedule standpoint, of course, the internet here is struggling. April 15th in San Francisco. And then, hold on. That's not right.
Yeah, the Masters starts April 7th. Yeah. Thursday is opening day in Major League Baseball. Not necessarily the Guardians, but Thursday's opening day in Major League Baseball. That's also the start of the Masters. So they'll start
April
the same
7th,
day the Masters
they're in
starts.
Kansas City for a 4:10.
Right.
Home opener 7:10 p.m. Friday night.
I think it got moved to Thursday. It's probably not updated on that yet, but I think they're going to do it Thursday at 4:10.
Guardians.com or MLB.com/Guardians, whatever it is.
I'm pretty sure.
You got to number one.
You don't want to do opening day at 7 o'clock on a Friday. No.
Like, come on, common sense.
I'm pretty sure it's 4:10. I thought it this morning. Somebody we had it that it was
how it
4:10,
should be.
and that is the way that it should be. All right, we'll do a little higher, lower. Get you on some scores coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Lots of bad advice out there about gambling, from secret methods to picking lottery numbers to betting big when you're on a roll. The myths can lose you money and get you in a lot of trouble. So before you wager, find out what's real and what isn't at keepitfunohio.com. A little higher, lower, Gibby, presented by our friends from the Ohio Lottery.
Yeah, what I thought we'd do today is come up with our own top 10, our power ranking, post a crazy week of trades and whatnot going into legal tampering and free agency.
Well, what if we do this? What if you, off of that, let's
how
go
you tweak it.
Let's go Super Bowl. Like, who can win the Super Bowl right now before legal tampering based on what's happened? Like, in other words, would I be shocked if this team won it? I go the 3 teams in the AFC West.
You're going, are you ranking them or are you just
I'll rank them in a second. So Kansas City, LA, Denver. You'd have to say Cincinnati because they just were in it.
Buffalo?
Baltimore, Buffalo. Baltimore probably not. Buffalo. So those 5. And then the NFC, I'd go Green Bay,
Rams.
LA, Dallas,
I guess.
Arizona. I can't see Arizona. That's hard for me to see Dallas.
I would put Dallas in. I would put Baltimore ahead of Arizona.
I mean, a healthy Baltimore, I would too.
And they will be.
Yeah. So how many do we have there? We have 9.
Do you want to put the 49ers?
Well, I don't know, because is it Trey Lance?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not rolling with Trey Lance right now.
Tennessee?
No. I think the window's closed.
Patriots?
Mm-mm. I think us with a healthy Baker is better than those teams.
I would agree with that. So, right now we've got 9.
You could throw us as the 10th for
right.
fun. That's fine. I mean, realistically, people would probably put Arizona ahead of us. But
we'll put Cleveland number 10.
Fine. So I go Cleveland 10. Probably Baltimore 9.
Yeah, because those could be interchangeable.
Yeah. I would probably go Dallas 10.
Well, no, number 8, you mean?
Or 8. I'm sorry. 8.
Of the 8 left.
Now you're talking about, so then for me, the next one comes down to Denver or the Chargers.
I still feel like the Chargers are missing something offensively.
Gosh almighty, they got a ton of weapons.
I mean, running back.
Eckler, though. Eckler's pretty good. I mean, I would probably go Kansas City number 1. If we're doing like futures, I'd go Kansas City 1. I'd go Buffalo 2. I guess you'd have to keep the Rams.
Cincinnati. Cincinnati's 7.
They have so much cap space. Like, they're going to keep throwing money at linemen.
I think.
I mean, I would think that they would eventually going to hit on one.
Is Cincinnati better than Denver?
Yeah, right now they are.
So maybe Denver is number 7.
Denver 7 and Chargers 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. So mine would be, you tell me where you differ. I would go in this order based on the teams we selected. Kansas City, Buffalo, Rams, Green Bay, Cincinnati, Chargers, Denver, Dallas, Baltimore, Cleveland. I think most people would probably have Arizona in there, probably above us. But for the sake of the fun of this, I'd have us in there.
Yes, we have to.
Yeah.
I think I would go KC 1. I think I'm putting the Packers number 2 still.
I mean, don't you think there are 4 teams right now that you can say absolutely I could see them winning the Super Bowl as is: Kansas City, Buffalo, the Rams, and Green Bay. And then Cincinnati's just on the outside looking in because I don't think they can withstand that much.
I would do KC 1, Green Bay 2, Rams 3, Bills 4, Bengals 5.
Yeah, that's fine. And then, like Cincinnati, the Chargers, you just have to see it. They have all the talent in the world. You just have to see it.
That's a prove it.
Prove it.
Yeah.
Denver, it's just a matter. I mean, they have everything. It's just a matter of does it mesh right away for Russ.
Defensively, do they have enough?
They're going to get Vaughn back. They got Patrick Surtain, who was locked down. They probably do. Albright likes their defense a lot. I know that. Dallas has, and then us, Dallas, Baltimore.
Coaching screws the pooch.
I agree. I mean, there's some separation there. It's like there's 4 teams that you can say absolutely. There's a couple here that you go, yeah, with some tweaks, have to see it. And then we're in that group with Baltimore and Dallas and the Cardinals.
And there's still a part of me that
Tennessee.
I know the Bengals we're a year away, but like the Bengals got hot at the right time.
For sure.
So I don't know. When Trotter's like earlier said, do you think so? Do we think so?
And they could come back for sure. I mean, they were hot at the right time. But I don't think there's anything that's fraudulent about Joe Burrow.
No, not at all. And I think from an offensive standpoint, they're loaded. Can the defense be as good as it was a year ago?
And how do they spend their money? What do they do in the draft?
Yeah.
But as they stand now, they don't have that many. Their question marks are on the offensive line. And this year they dealt with that, and all they did was get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Russell Wilson makes Denver better, makes them a top 10 team. I don't know if it's a top 5 right now.
No, they're a see it. They're prove it.
Yeah,
they're like the Chargers, I think. Yeah, and then all of this can change next week. That's where that's all going to go. Still so much more to come. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. If your car, truck, or motorcycle accident caused you injury, call the injury lawyers at 1-800-ELK Ohio for a free case review. Elk & Elk's a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Have a great weekend, everybody. The next level is coming up next. Thanks for listening. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.